I'm Ritchie, and this is my capstone. So when I was going through the thought process of what I wanted to do for my capstone, I had many different ideas, but I could never really get them to work out either because of scheduling or I just didn't think that it would be the right choice. I wanted to help with middle school swimmers, but then my swim practice would be the same time as theirs, so I couldn't really do that. And then I wanted to help at a camp, but I work in the summer, so I couldn't take that much time off of my job. And after going through all of these different things and not having any of them working out, my mom actually came up with the idea of me helping with sip shops. And when she did, I kind of just brushed it to the side. I didn't really think that that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know if it would work for a capstone. I didn't know if I could get enough hours for it. But I definitely think that God had a plan for me to do this as my capstone. About 2 weeks after my mom mentioned that, I was in a Walgreens and I ran into Tina Prochaska, and she's the leader of Sip Shops in Knoxville. And we were talking, catching up, because I hadn't seen her in a while, and she mentioned me coming to help, and that's when I knew that that's what I was supposed to do. So before I get into what Sip Shops is, I'm going to give a little background about how I got involved with it. So this is my brother, Henry Thomas, and he was born about 2 weeks after my second birthday. And growing up, he had a lot of health issues. At age 3, we discovered that he was deaf, and he was born without semicircular canals. So he could never, we were told he could never walk, but he did beat those odds. And at 6 years old, he was diagnosed with kidney cancer. So growing up as the sibling of a special needs kid is a lot different from what you would think of as a normal childhood. There are just a lot more things that you have to worry about, and it's definitely not easy. I think one of the main things that I definitely struggled with, and then that I see these kids in sip shops struggle with, is getting the attention that they want as a kid, because so much has to be put onto your sibling and the needs that they have to have, and getting those taken care of. So when I was about 7, Henry Thomas had just changed schools and started going to Tennessee School for the Deaf, and we met Tina there because she's a teacher, and she runs sip shops at TSD in one of the cottages about every 2 months, and she invited me to start coming. And so that's when I started going, and I went up until I aged out. So it's a program for the siblings of special needs kids, and we play games, we make crafts. It's for ages around 8 to 13, but it really just depends on how mature the kid is. They might be able to come early. Tina kind of decides that, but they're held all over the world. And Tina's is actually the longest running one in the world with one single leader, which I think is really cool. And they were started by Don Myers. So we have a few traditions that we do at the Knoxville one. We play knots as an icebreaker where everyone puts their hands in and you have to figure out how to get untangled. We do a card game called Killer, and the kids love that. I know it was my favorite. And there are a lot of peer support activities that we do without the kids really realizing that's what it's for. It's kind of just seen as getting to know each other better, or just we'll ask questions about what they like to do or what their siblings like to do, and that'll start a conversation about the struggles that they have. And I think it's really cool to be able to see a kid say, I struggle with this, and then someone else say, I do too, and then they can start talking about that. It can be labeled as a support group, but I really don't think, I definitely didn't think that's what it was when I was going, because if I did, I don't think I would have been as excited about it. And I think that it's cool how they show it to the kids and how much the kids like it, even though it is for support. So my fears and expectations going into this, I didn't know if I would be able to connect with the kids. I was really worried about that. I didn't want to do this and just go through the motions of getting the project done. I wanted to be able to enjoy it and get something out of it. And I kind of just expected to be there to help things run smoothly, like hand out papers, clean, which I definitely did do that, but it was a lot more life-changing than I thought it ever could be. And I am really thankful that I was able to do this. So my job as a junior leader, I would get there about an hour beforehand and I would help set up. And then during sib shops, they usually last about 4 hours. I would help clean and help transition the kids to the next activity. And I was also there to help the kids feel more comfortable, because there's a difference between the kids talking to a grown adult and then someone who's just a few years older than them. And so it just depends on the kid and how comfortable they're going to be talking to either me or Tina. So I, along with helping in Knoxville, I was able to attend the International Charge Syndrome Conference this past summer in Orlando, and it's held about once every 2 years, and this year it was in Orlando. Charge is the genetic disorder that Henry Thomas, or that we think Henry Thomas has. It hasn't been proven yet, but it's an acronym for coloboma, heart defects, atresia, retardation of growth, and development in ear abnormalities. At this conference, there were over 1,200 people who showed up, and it was family members of Charge people, individuals with Charge, and professionals that help with Charge patients. And it was really cool to be able to walk into a room and see all of these people who understand what it is, and the professionals know so much about it. And so that was really cool to be able to hear from them and hear more of the, I guess, genetic side of what's going on. So Tina has been going for the past 14 years to run the sib shops there, and I was able to go with her and do that. So because I was going with her, I was able to do a lot more of the planning process that I hadn't been able to do, and so I really realized how much planning goes into sib shops. I had never even thought that all of that would go into it. So we held a total of 4 sib shops, and they were each 4 hours long. We had about 20 kids come to each one, which was very different because we usually have about 10 to 12 at the Knoxville sib shops, and we also held these in a hotel suite, when in Knoxville we have an entire cottage at TSD with 2 living rooms, a kitchen, and a dining room, and now we have 20 kids in a hotel suite. So that was very different to figure out how to do that. But these kids were amazing. They were so mature for their age, because Henry Thomas is definitely high functioning compared to most people with Charge. Some people are blind and deaf, some people are in wheelchairs, and these kids were 10 and 12 years old, and they were talking about helping their siblings with stuff I can't even comprehend. I could relate to them, but I was still blown away by how different their experiences were from mine. And so here's some more pictures from, we make s'mores and we do friendship bracelets, and the kids really like that. So the takeaway from this, it was really cool to see the similarities that Henry Thomas has with Charge patients. They walk the same way, they sign the same way, they kind of have the same look about them. It was just so cool to walk into your room and see all these people who act just like he does. I think it was really important for me to be able to see that it's genetic and there's a reason that he acts the way he does. It's not just him acting out, and that was one of the most life-changing things that I took away from this. I was able to see how lucky we are, because we could have so much more to deal with on a daily basis. It could easily be a lot worse, and so instead of just being mad about what we have, I'm lucky that we're so fortunate to not have all of this other stuff going on. It's given me empathy for others, and I've definitely learned patience through having 20 kids in a hotel suite and learning how to calm them down. And I think one of the main things was being able to understand Henry Thomas's disorder, because I had never even heard about it or heard the specifics about it until this summer. So that was really cool for me. But moving forward, I'll be going to University of Tennessee, and I plan to go into teaching. And through helping with sib shops and also being a teacher's aide in the middle school for the past 2 years, I've realized the heart that I have for middle school kids. And so I plan on teaching at that level. And as long as I'm in Knoxville, I plan on helping with SIP shops at TSD because I really love it and I love these kids, and I just think it's so cool to be able to go and hang out with them and listen to them. But thank you. That's my capstone.
Very good.
There's a lot here, which I always appreciate, there being a lot than a little, so I do appreciate that, okay? I guess for me to start with Henry Thomas, so this is a journey, right? I mean, this is a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wow. So you said, let me try to phrase this without being too crazy here. So you said that you learned things about his journey that you didn't know before. So does that help? You said you said I heard the word empathy, which I always like that word. It's a great word, especially if you really understand it, right? So how has that changed Joe's relationship? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
I think there's a lot of kind of resentment there for a while, just because growing up with that,
Yeah.
as a kid, that's how you think that you're being pushed to the side, even though you're not. That's just how you see it. And so I think that I had a lot of resentment or anger towards him because I just thought it was him.
Mm-hmm.
But realizing that there is a reason for it, I think has really helped me get rid of that. And it's still an everyday thing,
yeah.
but I think that was one of the turning points.
Emmy, as you know, there's a young woman who's living in our home right now. Her mom is disabled. And I can see now in this girl's raising of her own child that there was a lot missing in terms of the nurturing, not because her mom didn't love her intensely, but she wasn't able to care for her in the same way that I was able to care for my own children. Do you know if there are any programs like this for kids who grow up with parents with disabilities? Because you're right, there's a division of attention there that this is an incredible opportunity for these kids.
Mm-hmm. I think I haven't heard of anything personally, but I'm sure that if there was someone who had disabled parents and they wanted to come to SIP shops, you can still talk about the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they would be welcome there.
Uh-huh.
And I see that working.
Now, you said you want to teach middle school.
Yeah.
That is special.
Probably going to ask a question about that as well.
I was going to say,
Yeah,
and
not
is
everybody
that
wants to do that.
to teach special needs, or is middle school just, how did I phrase that?
Yeah.
Special needs in and of itself.
Right.
That's a unique patience level with middle school students.
I just really like that age. I don't know, there's something about it. Every time someone asks me what I want to teach and I say middle school, they're always like, wow.
Yeah.
And I don't know, they're just quirky and I like that. And I like that I'm not really great with like little kids. I like to be able to have real conversations with them, but then also I feel like high school, you're so worried about like college and all that. And I think middle school is just like a good in between because they're still like figuring out who they are, and I really like that. I just think they're fun.
Well, God bless you. I think they're fun too. What is the genetic propensity? Will Henry Thomas's children be, like, do you know the percentages of that?
I think, well, actually when we were there was one man who spoke, and he didn't find out that he had charge until he was in his late 30s because he's so high functioning. But he found out because all 3 of his kids had charge. But that's so rare. I think they said that it's 1% that if you have charge, your kid is going to have charge. But there's a lot more that goes into it. I don't think, like, a lot of people who have charge can't have kids. So there's also that, but
Interesting.
it just depends.